live and direct from anywhere in the world. It's The Kelly Show with Dr. Kelly Mondesire.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Kelly Show. Real people with real stories in real time. And I have to tell you, in the green room, we just had the best time, me, my producer, engineer Gareth, and my next guest on the show. But I got to get a little serious now. Fun fact for the day, and this has a lot to do with my next guest. I play the Irish penny whistle. So for those of you who don't know what an Irish penny whistle is, Google it. That's what Google is for. Anyhow, today I've got a great guest on. She is brilliant. I call her a friend, a new friend, and she is an attorney. She is a board member of the Irish American Bar Association of New York. She is on the board of the Irish American Writers and Artists Association. She is funny, witty, and she's here to share her story today. So welcome to the show. Come on down, Shelley Ann Quilty. Hello, my friend.
Hello, my dear, and thank you very much for having me on, Dr. Kelly. I love being on your new, well, relatively new Kelly show.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We had some fun before in the green room. Yeah, I'm still laughing. But okay, time to get serious. We met at the Irish Business Organization of New York several years ago, and you were so welcoming to me as a new member. And we've always had some good crack, as we say in the Irish. But I've gotten to know you a little bit, not enough to say I know everything about you, but I'm so impressed by everything that always comes out of your mouth and your deeds and your good actions. So that's why I asked you today to be on the show. So let's start with, who are you? Where are you from? And how did you arrive into New York City? Gareth has some photos you provided for us from your days back in the motherland. So do tell.
Oh, it's like going back in a time machine. So my name is Shelley Ann Quilty. Well, Shelley Ann Quilty-Lake still, but moving back towards being Shelley Ann Quilty. And I was born in Wexford town, but I'm from the countryside in Wexford, a little place called Mayglass. County Wexford is in the sunny southeast of Ireland. So I was fortunate to grow up in the sunniest part of Ireland where palm trees grow. And the pictures that are captured there, so I adored horses growing up, and I still do love them. But those pictures there, the one on the left is me partially in my school uniform. I went to Loretta Wexford Secondary School. And that's me with my dad. And I was part of a team from school at a show jumping competition in Enniscorthy in Wexford, which is northern Wexford, going up towards Wicklow, Kilkenny area. And then the one on the right is me on a horse. My dad is from Limerick, from a place called Croom. And oftentimes every summer when we go on family holidays, we would, of course, go over to Limerick, and we stayed with the Curtains near Adair, which is near Croom. And they had a farm and they had horses. And one day I got to saddle up and ride one of the horses that they had. It was just beautiful, a beautiful experience. These are my Loretta Wexford teammates. I'm the one on the far right. And there we are. I'm going to say we were about 14 years of age then, which was a long time ago now. I don't ride so much now, but when I have the opportunity, I like to. A couple of years ago, it was actually after my baby brother Rob's wedding, I went with my then wife. We stayed at Mount Juliet in Kilkenny, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. At that time, I got to get back in the saddle and go horse riding. And it was wonderful that I basically hadn't forgotten anything. I went out one-on-one with Shauna, actually was the one who let us out. And so she said, well, I understand that you were quite experienced. And as soon as she saw me get in the saddle and saw how I, held myself and the reins, she's like, oh, okay, you haven't forgotten anything. You're good to go. we can counter and so forth.
Do you know that in Forest Park in Queens, I think they still have a stable where you can ride horses. My mother, back in the 40s and 50s, before she was married, she used to ride in Forest Park. I think they still have the stables. You might want to look into that.
That's actually a great idea, especially given that I'm in Queens. Yeah.
Forest Park. It's not too far from where you are. So tell me, how did you get to New York? Did you always want to be an attorney? No, solicitor, as you call it in Ireland.
That was a journey, not just geographic, but in a whole host of ways. So I began my American adventure in Boston. I had studied undergrad at Trinity College in Dublin, and I actually studied business and economics there. In my final year, this was in the year 2000, I saw a flyer, because back then it was very old school that way. I printed out flyers saying that there was an opportunity to study abroad for a graduate non-degree program in Boston at Boston College. Now, originally my plan at that time was to go to Australia because the Olympics were going to be on, the Sydney 2000 Olympics. But I had never been to America, and I had always figured that I would go on to do postgrad studies. So I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. Why not, at least apply? And if I get it, I get it. And if I don't, I don't. And I'll go to Australia instead. So I got that scholarship to go to Boston College. 1 year turned into 2, and I changed from my course of studies from like MBA courses to psychology, actually, educational and developmental psychology. I graduated from Boston College and moved to New York City. I was working at a law firm, a corporate law firm called Cravat, Swain & Moore, as a paralegal. And we had a pro bono project with the Juvenile Rights Division, the Brooklyn office. And we were working with youth who were aging out of foster care. And that's when I fell in love with the law. And that's when I decided that I wanted to study to become an attorney, because I'll be honest, working in corporate law as a paralegal, I actually became very cynical with respect to the law. I saw that if you had a ton of money, you could buy your way out of legal situations. But to see that the law could be used as a tool for good, as a force to assist those who were voiceless and who actually needed redress and access to the law most of all, it really energized me. And I felt like I found my calling. That got me started on the path then to study law and become an attorney.
So what challenges did you encounter coming over from Ireland and finding yourself in New York, not only as a young law student, but also embarking into a career in law?
Well, my initial hurdle when I moved from Boston to New York was actually finding work. I was naive at the time and thinking, because I then had a master's, that it would be fine, like doors would open and I'd be able to find a job in no time. And that was not the case for multiple reasons. One, I realized that I was in this difficult position of being over credentialed, but under experienced. But thankfully, because I'm immigrant lucky and because of friends that I made when I was in Boston, who were from New York, from the Bronx, Arnold and Esther Messing. It was Arnold in particular who opened doors for me to get that job at Cravat, Swain & Moore that started me into the law. And then in terms of what obstacles I faced in the law, gosh, that's a long discussion in terms of, especially, I would say, as a woman attorney and being young as well, relatively young when I started out. Sort of those two things, I'd say, being younger and being a woman. I don't want to say that there were impediments, but they were viewed probably as such by others in the legal profession.
How did you overcome those obstacles?
I'm Irish and I'm stubborn, really. So even though it was nerve-wracking at first, like you go through law school, you study intensely for the bar, you get a license, and it's like then you figure out how to actually practice law. That's how it works in the States, unlike across the pond, like you were referring to, Kelly, where it's actually a better model, I would say, across the pond, in that you get to apprentice, whether you're a solicitor or a barrister, you get to apprentice in that you get to learn your trade before you're deemed to be qualified. In the US, it's pretty much the reverse. You learn all the technical stuff, you learn the information, and then you have to go out and figure out how to actually be an attorney.
A very good friend of mine, he was 96 at the time. He was a broker on the New York Stock Exchange. He said to me one day, all you lawyers and doctors, why is it all you do is practice law and practice medicine? Why are you always practicing?
I know. I love that when people ask, like, what do you do? I practice law. I said, one of these days I'll get it right.
But true.
Because it is an ongoing endeavor, right? You're always learning.
It is indeed, and every case is different in law as in medicine. I know there are, even though we speak the same language, there are cultural differences between Ireland and the United States. Did you find that there a transition or any type of culture shock coming from Ireland over to the States?
Absolutely. And I couldn't help but think at the time, although he was the leader of a different country, this being Winston Churchill, describing Britain and the US being two nations separated by a common language, I definitely felt that. I thought that it would be a much smoother transition for me culturally coming from Ireland to America by virtue of speaking English. But it was not. I did not cop on that the English I spoke was entirely different from American English. So there was the language difficulties. And the misunderstandings were often comical because not only did I not realize that I was using so many colloquialisms, Irish colloquialisms in my language, but that words, the same words had very different meanings in Ireland versus the US. So that was often comical. Yeah. So there was that. There was like, oh, actually, this is an impediment, or this is a difficult thing for me to try and figure out how to be understood. I was also mumbling and soft-spoken then. So I had to learn to enunciate and slow down and figure out American English. But there was also cultural differences in terms of, like, I found everything different in terms of the products on the shelves. I remember my first time in a supermarket and I'm trying to find a cream cleanser for cleaning my new place that I was living at. And I approached someone and I asked them for help and they said, I'm Canadian, I don't understand either. So there was things that I just didn't think through that I would find to be different. And also, like, the cultural norms here were quite different from what I'd experienced in Ireland. And even though I'd studied abroad in the Netherlands and I didn't know Dutch, it felt so much more strange to me, say, living in the Netherlands, not knowing the language, although everyone there speaks English anyway. But culturally, there just seemed to be an affinity versus it felt more alien for me, I think, in the States initially. But thankfully, by virtue of being Irish, that was always a good thing. And people responded very well to me. So in that sense, it helped me overcome the culture shock that I experienced because I was like, well, people can't understand me, but they seem to like me anyway. The
first time I had attended an Irish Business Organization of New York event, there were so many Irish from all over the Republic. I went to the president, Paul Finnegan, at one point, and I said, Paul, you have to come over. I have no idea what this fellow is saying. I can't understand him. And at the time, I spoke 4 different languages. But Gareth, our master producer and engineer, extraordinaire, he has just put into the chat here that the term practice is derived from the Latin word practicus, which means practical or skilled in a particular art, science, or profession. So, and the next time someone says to us, so how come you people are always doing nothing but practicing? We're going to give them that one.
I like that. Thank you, Garrett.
But Shelley, you certainly have become a very important member of the Irish community in New York in particular. Can you tell me, how did you end up as a board member of the Irish American Bar Association? And we have a few photos here. You're on the board, here we go. You're on the board of the Irish American Writers and Artists, and this is President Higgins at a recent event. So let's talk first, how did you end up on the board of directors? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about Mr. Higgins here.
Actually, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not presently on the board of the Irish American Bar Association of New York. I stepped off. That was the first organization that I became a board member of. I'm trying to recall now how exactly. It was pretty early on, and my being an attorney in New York, I was aware of the Irish American Bar Association, and so I signed up. And then I do tend to have this orientation of wanting to put my hand up and help. And so I did that early on. And thankfully, those who were involved with the organization said, yeah, come on in and help. I cultivated really good relationships and connections through that organization, which I still have to this day, many longstanding friends. Becoming a board member, and then after becoming a board member of the Irish American Bar Association of New York, I then in about 2017 became a board member of the Irish Business Organization of New York. And that's how it was while I was a board member of the IBO that I got to know you, Dr. Kelly. It was in 2021, I got a call from Sean O'Dowd at the time. He was on the board of the Irish American Writers and Artists. And he had said that my name came up at a board meeting as being a prospective board member, and he asked me if I'd like to join. I was delighted and taken aback because I said, but I'm only an attorney. I'm not a writer or an artist. He said, well, people know about you and they'd like your enthusiasm, and we think that your skill set as an attorney would be useful. So please consider coming on. And I did. And I have loved every minute of serving on the board of Iowa, which I'll call it for short. It's not the state. And it's been extremely enriching being around creative people from an array of different aspects of the creative sector, writers and playwrights and painters and poets and musicians and dancers and set designers and visual artists. It's been terrific. And they accept me as an attorney, which I appreciate.
That has led to this photo, and it's not every day one has the honor and pleasure of having President Higgins in the room. So tell us about what's going on in this photo, the event, when it took place. Do enlighten us.
Okay, so this is, as indicated on the podium that I'm at, it took place at the Irish Art Centre on September 23rd. The Irish American Writers and Artists that evening honoured President Michael D. Higgins, who is the President of Ireland, with the Eugene O'Neill International Public Service Award. Iowa had been seeking to honour President Higgins for quite some time, for quite some years. And it was the former president, Maria Deasy, who really spearheaded the effort and pursued it even throughout the pandemic to have us honor President Higgins, because not only has he shown and demonstrated exemplary and inspiring work in his distinguished career as a public servant in Ireland as a politician, including his 2 terms as President of Ireland, he is, as we lovingly describe, our poet president. He's an amazing orator, which is why I was glad I got to speak before him and not afterwards, but he really is a genuine lover of the arts, which is one of the key reasons as well why Iowa wanted to bestow this award on him, because he walks the talk. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of various writers. He is a fan of Eugene O'Neill, but he also, as a politician, has instituted many things which support artists so that they can create and also live.
Can you tell me, is this President Higgins receiving the award, and who's this other young lady here in the photo with you?
Yes, that is President Higgins receiving the actual Eugene O'Neill International Public Service Award, which was a beautiful piece made by the artist Simon Pearce. And the phenomenal woman in this photograph is Kate Mulgrew, who's incomparable in that she is a phenomenal actress on the TV screen, film, theatre. Actually, the night we presented that award to President Higgins, Kate had just had her opening night in The Beacon, which is a play that's currently being performed by Kate and her cast members at the Irish Rep Theatre in New York City. And she's also an author too. So Kate was there. She introduced President Higgins. Kate is a big supporter of Iowa. She is an honoree. She's an honoree who who was honored with the Eugene O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020 because of her exemplary accomplishments in the arts. And here we are upstairs after the event, and President Higgins being bestowed with the honor, with the award. That is the Iowa crew. I'm over to the far right, and beside me is Maria Deasy, the former president of Iowa, who I was talking about. President Higgins in the middle. His fabulous wife, Sabina Higgins, beside him. Kathleen Walsh Darcy beside Sabina. And then in the back, we have Catherine McNair, who's a board member. We have Logan, who is a member of Iowa and a son of a board member who we'll get to shortly. Jeff Kennedy, who is over from California. He's with the Eugene O'Neill Society there. Then we have Mary Pat Kelly, Iowa member and also author. Connor Bagley, board member. John Mullany, board member. Liza Engesser, that's her son, Logan. She's a board member who I was referring to earlier. Dara Carr, board member. Sarah Fearon, board member. And Annalisa Chamberlain, board member.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And if you had any words of advice for a young person, a J1 that's coming over to the States and would love to stay here and build a life here in the States, what advice would you give them?
My advice to any J1 coming over is persist. Persist. It is key to persevere in your efforts to land a job here, to carve out your life here. Doors will open for you, connections will be made so long as you continue to pursue them. That was a big learning lesson for me throughout my time here in the States, is that you just don't quit. Obstacles will be presented and you just continue to plow on, to clear them, to overcome them, to get around them. And yes, you're going to have days where you ask yourself, is this worthwhile? Maybe it's just not going to work out for me. Maybe it's time for me to consider packing up my bags and going back to Ireland. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you truly want to make America your home, if you want to pursue opportunities here, they are here for you. You just have to plow on and persist and lean into that Irish stubbornness in that regard.
And what do you see yourself doing in 10 years?
10 years, it's a long time away.
Tick, 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 tick.
I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, this past August, I was 24 years in the States. So next year will be my, what's that, silver anniversary?
Something like that.
I don't really know where I'll be in 10 years. I do still see myself here in the States and still in New York City because it's in my bloodstream. I think I'll likely be spending more time between the States and Ireland. I would like to do that more than I have up to now. But in terms of like professionally where I'll be, personally where I'll be, I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to see what unfolds and embrace whatever it is.
Well, we have a tradition on the Kelly Show, and it is a question I ask all of our guests. If you can name one person, place, thing, or experience that you're grateful or thankful for, who or what would it be?
It's one person. I am very grateful, eternally grateful for my granny Stafford. Not only because, and sadly she's no longer with us, well, not in person, but I definitely feel her spirit and guidance even still. But I wouldn't be where I am today were it not for Granny, because of the love that she radiated, not just to me. I mean, she certainly provided an example of how to live one's life in terms of how to treat other people, but always with dignity and respect. Personally, the love that she provided to me provided this sort of protective force field for me, as I realized looking back in hindsight, and was the wind in my sails throughout my life, because I was an odd child in the sense that I was a tomboy, which in small town Ireland, when you're expected to be a certain way as a girl, didn't necessarily go over very well, especially in school. I was described in primary school as giddy by my teachers. The majority of my teachers did not like me at all. I was told constantly that I would amount to nothing and be nobody. But that was never the case with Granny. When I would come out of school and she'd pick me up, She's like, you are excellent. She made me feel like I was the best thing since sliced pan. She just thought the world of me, and that meant everything.
Thank you for sharing that. And what was her full name so we can think and recognize her?
So Ellen Stafford.
Nellie, we like that.
Yeah.
Well, Shelley, thank you so much for sharing your story, for coming on the show, and for also agreeing to interview me for my birthday episode. Spaghetti-O.
We'll be having the crack. It'll be good. Don't worry. I'm not going to cross-examine you.
You could. It's okay. It wouldn't be my first rodeo. Got a story for that one. Maybe I shouldn't tell that story. But anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. And folks, if you would like to reach out to Shelley Ann Quilty, she is an attorney extraordinaire. She's located in New York, but however, she is accessible via email, telephone. She's on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or would like to connect with her regarding her journey, and maybe you're considering to come to the States and begin your journey as a young person from Ireland, we have her contact information up here for you. Beautiful photo, Shelley, by the way. And if you would like to be on the Kelly Show as a guest, write in. We have the address right here. Write in with your name, where in the world you are, why you want to be on the show, and what your story is in a paragraph. And we'll reach out to you, we'll contact you, we'll have a little chit chat, and we'll work it out. However, don't miss any episodes of The Kelly Show, past and present, and you'll get previews of what's coming in the future. We have our YouTube information here. Subscribe to the show, never miss an episode, and stay tuned for next week because it's a very, very special guest. But you're gonna have to stay tuned and subscribe. So be well, God bless. Gareth, take it away.
If you would like to be a guest on The Kelly Show, send us an email with your contact information, where in the world you are, and a brief description of the story you'd like to share today.